The following program is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. You can request podcast topics, enjoy exclusive RPG and video content, and more. Even just $1 a month gets you gameplay episodes a week early and makes you officially cool. Just like our Trash Elite, a guy from Ohio, and Rob, DG, Drake Starstorm, Kitty Holbrook, Destrucity KTL, Passion Killer 711, and Thomas Austin Jr.
I like that you skip up the order. I like it.
I try to because while we do have different tiers, thank you Train for chiming in immediately, only the Trash Elite are the important tier to elevate above others. Everybody else, I appreciate your contributions, even if it's only $1.
So we're talking about wrestling.
Yeah, I'm Eric J. Chucci, joined as always by the boy.
This was AEW Double or Nothing 2025. Train is lots of thoughts today. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I think you can if your volume is very loud.
So, very briefly, we can talk about what's been crumping. It's not much different from last week.
I don't think any new thing has crumped for me since the last time I sat down to talk to you people.
I don't believe so either, unless I finally managed to figure out how to enjoy Hollow Knight. Good Lord, Train. Since the last time we spoke. What does a train toot for? What's going on out there that's so toot-worthy?
When going through a town in the nighttime, they toot more because they don't want someone to be on the tracks and not notice a train is coming.
Well, that's valid. I don't actually care. It's not picking up enough to annoy you guys. And if it is, let us know in the comments, and I'll definitely tell the local train station to stop that shit. AEW Double or Nothing 2025.
This was a show I was not excited for at all. I feel like AEW did a bad job selling this show. Like, actively bad. Not even mediocre. If I wasn't already entirely completely bought in and really, really wanted to see specifically the main event, and thus I was going to buy the show regardless, I probably wouldn't have bought this show. They did such a fucking terrible job building it.
Yeah. I'm kind of checked out. I didn't feel strongly enough about this card to even be mad at it. The choices for winners were either equally good or equally bad.
And very predictable, as is increasingly common in AEW.
I did try to channel my negativity elsewhere. I talked to somebody else who was not invested in wrestling when I had bigger complaints or more personal complaints. And I think that helped out a lot. They had a funny insight.
It kept his energy positive and the actual show, and that was nice.
I actually didn't have that much bad to say. I guess I'm just used to it by now. Take that as you will. But the two main event matches were really good, and the rest of the show was fine.
For all that they did a bad job building it, the show itself was perfectly serviceable. Most of the matches were I didn't give a shit about them, but they were well wrestled. And the two matches that did rise above that for me were fucking peak. They were great.
Which used to be reliable from AEW, but I feel like the last few pay-per-view events have not been hitting the way they used to. I wish I had more preamble here because this is a half-hour show. We'll figure it out.
Don't worry.
Okay, I'm going to be leaving the room to go get a coffee later. The pre-show I saw half of. Harley Cameron and Anna Jay beat Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford on a roll-up in a women's tag team match. There's been some scuttlebutt about AEW getting women's tag team titles. I think that's a good idea because it's really hard for them to put women's feuds on the card that aren't about a title. So if that's your problem, then just give us more titles.
For me, like, AEW has 1 billion titles already. So, like, I wouldn't want another men's title. But the women of those 1 billion titles, 2 are for the ladies. So them getting another one is absolutely fine. And also, AEW has a big, relatively big women's roster, and you'll see almost none of them. So we can finally get, like, Sky Blue and Julia Hart in an actual tag team. There's a lot of opportunity for interesting and fun storytelling.
It was a fun match. Anna Jay's gotten a lot better since she left, and Harley Cameron is a delight. I actually liked Megan Bayne here a little bit more, too.
Megan Bayne feels a lot less like a forced Millhouse meme now that she's not being that.
Yeah, I would agree.
And it allows me to more naturally onboard her into my wrestling universe. Also, she's showing some new sides to her personality that are more entertaining.
I agree with that as well. The next pre-show match was RPG Vice and Crew against Los Titanes del Aire and Bandito and AR Fox. You saw this, I did not.
Yeah. This was a fun match. It didn't really overstay its welcome. It was a lot of fun lucha stuff, back and forth. The good guys win. It was just there to get the crowd hype. You know, it was your warm-up act, and they did a fine job at that, but it didn't matter. Most of the fucking Carl Bertone is the fucking patron saint of this pay-per-view for like 80% of it.
Yeah. So we move into the main show. Jamie Hayter and Mercedes Mone, the TBS champion. This isn't about that title, though. It's about the Women's Owen Hart Foundation Cup Tournament Final. The winner earns a shot at the AEW Women's World Championship at All In. 20 minutes they went. It was pretty good.
Yeah, a perfectly serviceable match. I didn't give a shit about this.
No.
Like, they did a mediocre job building it. Like, not great, not terrible. It was pretty obvious from Jump Street who was going to win. And they in no way surprised anyone. And Mercedes won.
I liked the idea of Jamie Hayter winning because she's got storyline built into that. But
well, she's also a former world champion, but, like, she's clearly a mid-carder since she came back. And Mercedes, like, I'm not sure why they gave her the TBS title in the first place. She's been destined for the main event this whole time and has for some reason just not been doing it.
Next up, we had what one of the good folks on our Discord called a collision main event.
Accurately called.
Yeah. Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness against FTR. In case you've missed what's been going on, FTR turned heel on Edge for reasons. And Daniel Garcia was like, hey, we were friends. I don't think I care for you much anymore. And FTR went, I'll pile drive you about it.
And then they did.
Yeah. And for some reason, against everyone, including Nigel McGuinness's best wishes, Nigel McGuinness also fights.
Yeah, like, Nigel didn't want to do this, but Danny Garcia is that friend who hypes you up to do some shit you oughtn't. And then, like, when you get hurt doing the shit you oughtn't, is like, oh man, that's too bad. You probably shouldn't have made that call.
I've lost so much momentum on Daniel Garcia since they downplayed his dancing gimmick. He still dances a little bit, don't get me wrong. But
the dancing is back now, and that makes it better. But generally speaking, his just ass run with the TNT title really took the shine off the apple for me. Father Sorcery is peak. He remains peak, but Daniel Garcia should never have beaten Jack Perry.
No.
That was a decision that fucking, like a Telltale game or like a Dragon Age game, I will remember this. That affected my outlook on you. That affected our companionship rating forevermore.
I think this was good in that FTR needed a win. They've been antagonizing announcers, especially Shivani and Nigel. They've got Stokely in their corner now. Big
Stoke is, as always, an excellent mouthpiece. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. After you turn a tag team like FTR heel, they need a couple wins to keep themselves legitimate, to reestablish themselves as contenders, so that you can eventually have them fight for the titles. I think this is absolutely FTR should have won this match. They did win this match. Nigel, I didn't notice had lost a step, but White, I believe you did notice he had lost a step since.
Usually when he was doing moves, like, he was fine, but like the timing for spots was off. And that's, dude, the guy's like in his 50s. It's understandable. I'm not trying to be mean to Nigel or anything. He's doing a hell of a lot better than I would.
He didn't fucking wrestle for like 20 years.
Yeah.
He's an excellent pro wrestler. He's better than 90% of people to ever lace up boots still. But in AEW, where the best wrestle, that last 10% is noticeable.
Yeah, and the fact that this match didn't matter, other than FTR need a win, it shouldn't have been a pay-per-view match. I get why it was here.
Yeah, it was to fill time.
But it was a waste of time.
Yeah, this should not have been on this card. Like, I understand why it was, but no, that's stupid. Just give more time to the other matches. This wasn't worth a pay-per-view match. It just was not.
Speaking of matches that were a waste of time, but good though, and it was a finely wrestled match, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't entertaining that much for me.
It would have been fine on Collision.
Yeah. Or even Dynamite. Like, they're just on
FTR
Collision
just
more
doesn't
often.
normally come to Dynamite very often.
We had Ricochet up against Mark Briscoe. Ricochet and Mark Briscoe had been in matches with each other a few times since the last pay-per-view, and a week ago, AEW decided that they were feuding this whole time. So they're having a stretcher match, which is the AEW version of an ambulance match. Please don't sue us. And this was really entertaining.
I just find it interesting that WWE owns the concept of the ambulance.
I think it's more that you shouldn't just... Why bother? Why court their lawyers?
That's fair.
It was a good match. It was a good hardcore match. There were some cool spots. It was scary. I like Ricochet.
This was fun and good, and gave the upcoming big garbage match that was going to happen later some competition, because it was a well-wrestled hardcore match with fun spots.
I am glad that Ricochet got the victory here. He's needed that. AEW's mid-card is so hard to...
It's like AEW's mid-card is a crab bucket. It feels like every time someone starts to rise out of the mid-card, one of the other crabs comes by and drags them down.
Except for, it used to be the tag division. The tag division used to be the highlight of the mid-card, where good stuff was happening and unexpected people could win and you could see some really cool stuff. But then they decided that the tag titles should sit on a shelf near the trios titles. The tag titles don't gather as much dust, but they do belong on the shelf.
Now, they have changed that recently. The most recent tag champs wrestle a lot for their titles, relatively speaking.
Not in the last fucking build.
No. But before this last month or so, they have been pretty active. But I will concede this last month. So now is the time in which we talk about the most frustrating feud, the most frustrating storyline.
May I finalize a point on the Ricochet thing?
Yes, please do.
It's hard to get excited about anyone in the mid-card because of the crab bucket reason. So at least Ricochet securing a win makes it seem like he might get out of the mid-card and do something meaningful, or do something meaningful in the mid-card.
Just do something.
Yes. Now, please.
So, MJF has recently been in a storyline with the Hurt Syndicate that has been the single most confusing and frustrating MJF storyline that I've ever seen, and the single most confusing and frustrating storyline in AEW in a while. I don't understand. So there's this story, right? It's from a guy who worked in the WWE as a story consultant for a while.
Sure.
Not very long. But he was talking about, like, he had this idea for, this was, back in the early 2010s, I think, for Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman to have a feud. And he had all these great ideas for cool, interesting stuff that could happen that would give the characters development and move their stories forward. And then he tells this story to Seth Rollins, and it's, it's fairly long. This is a guy who can pitch things fairly well, so it's fairly well pitched. And then there's a beat at the end, and as he tells the story, Seth Rollins goes, "Who does that put over?" And I've always felt disconnected from that story. Like, I just fundamentally, there's something about pro wrestling I'm not getting, because clearly it puts over both men. You both do cool, interesting things. Until now, because I don't know who the fuck this puts over.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I don't think it's putting anyone over. And the announcers, the commentators, the interviewers aren't helping. And you see something similar with the Death Riders. I don't know if they're making jabs at the writing or what, but people are asking, why does the Hurt Syndicate even want MJF? Not in the snide Tony Schiavone hates MJF way, but in like Taz or Excalibur going, I'm not sure what the point is.
I don't know what MJF is bringing to this arrangement. Like, when Schiavone says it, yeah, of course, Schiavone fucking hates MJF. Schiavone barely made himself not audibly hate MJF when MJF was the most over babyface in the company. Very excellent, consistent character work from Mr. Tony Schiavone. But when Excalibur says it, it's true. He's the play-by-play neutral guy. He's lightly faced, but mostly neutral. when Excalibur says that, it's true. Why are you having Excalibur say that unless you want us to think that MJF is not bringing anything to the Hurt Syndicate? This is bad booking, because MJF is the longest reigning AEW champ in company history, a bona fide main eventer, and your best talent.
They've spent so much of this storyline making fun of MJF, treating MJF like Mark Sterling.
Yeah, MJF has been, in this whole storyline, a fucking dweeb. A little brother-ass, Melvin-ass dweeb who's not cool enough to hang out with the Hurt Syndicate and is desperately clawing to hang out with the cool kids. That doesn't put MJF over. It could. MJF does great as a chicken shit heel, but they're not booking him like a chicken shit heel. They're booking him like a fucking loser. There's a difference.
And it could put both over in different senses, make MJF more sympathetic despite him being a heel, and make the Hurt Syndicate look canny and heelish. If it was all a prank, bro, there was never any chance he was getting into the Syndicate, and this was just an excuse to clown on MJF for a couple of months. But that's not the case. They let him join.
Yeah, and they seem to be getting along now. And, like, it's... There's so many points where they could have chosen to do something cool or interesting, and they continued to choose to do the most confusing, dumb bullshit. It was funny. The very last time before MJF officially got in, after the most frustrating series of like a month long of him being buried and the Hurt Syndicate being buried for a different reason, he finally gets in, and that last time, they drug it out so long during the promo that it became funny again, but then they just went back to doing the same shit, and it got confusing. I'm not mad anymore. I was mad for a minute, but now I'm just fucking confused. I don't know who this puts over. Why is this happening? Who is getting over? Who is being pushed? What do you want to be accomplishing? You're not fucking doing it, but I can't even tell what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and not even that one party needs to be put over the other, but it's not building either. They both have looked, your mileage may vary, but they both have looked worse because of this.
Ideally, you want to put both talents over in a storyline. Somehow you've managed to make both talents you've managed to kind of bury both sets of talents. We've talked about this in the Discord, and I understand some of the Discord people disagree with me, but I maintain that for the bulk of this storyline, MJF looked like a fucking loser dweeb, and the Hurt Syndicate looked stupid. And, like, MJ and MVP looked like a manager who couldn't control his people. Bobby Lashley looked either like a guy who's so weak to peer pressure, he's willing to hang out, he's willing to put the scorpion on his back and get into the fucking river, or a dick who's being an asshole for no reason, and also everyone else thinks that's funny.
I don't quite get it.
I just don't understand what's happening.
I have a small theory. MJF wanted to work with Stokely. Stokely was being put with FTR, so MJF needed to be with the tag team champions. But that is a shot in the dark guess.
Do they just like hanging out?
Yeah, if you've watched MJF's documentary, Stokely was involved in that. Minor role, but
okay.
Quote unquote documentary.
I mean, it could just be as simple as MJF wanted to hang out with the Hurt Syndicate, like, because they are cool. Like, IRL, Max wanted to hang out with these people. He thought it'd be fun. It could be fucking MVP wanted to bring him in. Backstage, there might be any number of reasons.
Sure.
I don't understand the story you're trying to tell, and it's very frustrating to be this confused.
And it has taken up a lot of time on weekly TV, usually at least 2 segments a show. But the Hurt Syndicate were defending against the Sons of Texas, who last week decided they were getting a shot at the title.
Hey, the pay-per-view's coming up, and you don't have any contenders because you've been doing this stupid bullshit for a month? We're your contenders now. We decided.
No, you're not. You have to fight the crew. Okay, we fought the crew. We decided. That wasn't even hard. Give us a real test.
And, like, the Sons of Texas have about as much chance of winning that match as I do. So it was completely a foregone conclusion that they were going to lose. And then they did. The only interesting part of the match was, like, will this somehow make the MJF thing make sense? And it didn't. It fully didn't make it make sense.
No, it got even more confusing through the course of the match, if you can imagine that. I don't know. I don't know where this is going. I hope there's a payoff someday.
I want to be wrong. You know this, listener, if you've been a long time listener to the podcast. My favorite thing is to be proven wrong about shit like this. I want to understand. I want to see the machinations. I want to see your 5D chest. Explain. Explain, Tony Khan. Explain.
So next match, again, a week or two ago, it was determined that Speedball Mike Bailey would be fighting Kazuchika Okada for his Continental Championship.
Same exact reason. Hey, the pay-per-view's coming up and we forgot to book you a title match. I decided.
I liked Speedball until he betrayed his gambling addiction attire tonight.
White Raven hates the game Balatro. And Speedball's gambling attire for the gambling pay-per-view was inspired by the gambling video game that isn't actually gambling.
It's RNG, though.
And so he's now the enemy. He is now an official.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
he's an enemy of the podcast.
Should have kept your frog from Chrono Trigger gear. That was cool.
That was extremely based.
This was a pretty good match, even if there was no real emotion behind it. And I was pretty sure Okada was going to win. During the match, they started to work me a little bit, and I was like, I don't know, maybe they will give it to Speedball.
Well, I mean, like, I would have been fine if Speedball won. Okada has done fucking nothing in 6 months, so...
I think the only match on this card that I would have been upset if the other person won was the Hurt Syndicate versus the Sons of Texas. Sons of Texas do not need the belt collector gimmick. It's not that serious, you guys. Hurt Syndicate needs to look strong and have a worthy successor in whoever beats them.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
As confusing as it is, I don't want them to lose. That makes it worse.
Yes. Speedball did not win this. They had a good contest, though. I really enjoyed it. I don't have much else to say.
It was a fine wrestling match. I didn't give a shit. It was obvious who was going to win, and it was built up badly and with like a week. So, this was a fine match. It was 15 minutes, 16 minutes, looks like. I didn't hate it. It was a fine enough time.
We also had Mina Shirakawa coming up against Timeless Toni Storm again for her AEW Women's World Championship.
I want to say some stuff here.
Okay.
Timeless Toni Storm, in this most recent run, since the Hollywood ending, I would say, has done nothing of real merit with her title run.
She's had some great promos, but she can do those without the title.
Yeah, she can. Nothing stops her from doing those promos. The title isn't necessary for those. This match was incredibly predictable. Mina, again, has about as much chance of winning this match as I do. So, it was obvious Toni was going to walk away with the title. Mina Shirakawa is fun, even if Tony Khan didn't like her new music. I thought it was fine. And, like... This storyline is a continuation of, the Mariah May storyline of it all. And, love wins at the end. That's fun. Now, having said all of that, I don't care. Toni Storm's great. She can do nothing with that fucking belt for the next 6 years for all I give a shit. She's excellent.
So the problem I have with the women's division in AEW right now, and why I'm kind of excited about the prospect of tag titles, is... AEW, and a lot of feds, it's not just AEW, but AEW, in this instance, has a hard time booking women's feuds that don't involve the title. Even something as good as Toni Storm versus Mariah May was still also about the title. It could have been fine without the title, but they did use it, and it was there. AEW's given it a couple of other cracks, but they weren't very good storylines.
Or the matches they ended up in weren't very good.
Yeah, that was also a problem. So it's frustrating when those titles are tied up with two people, those being Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm. Because with both of these champions, AEW got in the habit of, there's a new girl on the block. She's from the Indies or Japan. She's very popular. People are pretty sure she's going to beat whoever the champion we're throwing her against is. She didn't beat the champion? What do you know? Well, there's a new girl on the block. And they just would repeat this. And it's just like, I'm stunned that you don't notice how predictable that is. Even MJF made fun of the fact that he would put people in a gauntlet against all of his goons before they could challenge him for the title.
That's his thing. He called it out. IRL. It was great.
So I want to see more women's talents who are here. Show me more about Mina Shirakawa after this. Megan Bain. Maybe have somewhere for Mariah May to go that doesn't start with a W and end with an E. But I don't know where you put that when the only champions that are allowed to be are Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné. Yes, I know Mariah had the title for a while, but it was going back to Toni Storm. We all knew that. Don't pretend.
And like for me, I'd be perfectly fine with Mercedes dropping the TNT title, and that being the title that gets passed around also, but not Toni Storm. Fuck you guys. Toni Storm's excellent. I don't care if she does nothing with that belt. She should get the Athena Ring of Honor run of the fucking 500-day forever champ. I'm not even kidding. Fucking peak. She does the best promos in the AEW women's roster by 6 miles. It's not even close.
She's really good. I can't even really argue with you. My only argument is I think it might be healthier for, like me eating chips. It would probably be healthier for my body if I didn't eat chips, but tongue-like. We move into the Anarchy in the Arena match, one of the better matches of the night. 35 minutes this sucker went. The teams were...
It did not feel like it. It felt fun. It didn't drag.
Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Marina Shafir, and Wheeler Yuta with the Young Bucks against Kenny Omega, Swerve Strickland, Willow Nightingale, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Katsuyori Shibata. Where to begin?
Just fucking... He missed the beginning of this match, like the very beginning.
Like the first, maybe, minute.
No, a couple minutes.
Well, I missed a lot of the entrances.
Yeah, you missed the entrances, and you missed the beginning of the the music bit.
Yeah.
They redid the music bit of, this, and I think Blood and Guts tends to do it as well, of the theme music starts and then just keeps going and going and going and going. But it was the Young Bucks comedy theme music of, like, fife and drum music from the Revolutionary War. So it was bad. So Kenny Omega asked for different music, and it became I'm So Excited.
Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah, it was I'm So Excited for like 20 seconds. And then he took a mic, he was like, no, let's do a cool music instead. And then for like 10, 15 minutes of this match, Drowning Pools, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor was the fucking theme music for this fight, and it ripped. It was awesome.
There were a lot of really good spots, fun car crash stuff. Really, it was a really smartly put together match. I am so glad they showed multiple camera angles, and some of those camera angles were shown to showcase that man did not just die.
He is alive.
Yeah, he took that move really well, actually. Don't worry, friends at home.
This match was fun. I had a great time. It wasn't a high art, but it was a fun garbage fire, man. Sometimes all you need is good popcorn movie.
It was. And this is one of those matches where I really like a lot of the people on one side. I'm less hot on Kenny these days, but I do like him. Willow, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, Katsuyori Shibata. I love all of them. Those are some of my favorite people in...
If the Opps had good theme music, they might be your favorite faction in AEW.
They might give me more hope, yeah, but...
They have terrible fucking theme music.
And they have the Trios titles, which means they're probably going to be off of TV from now on.
Shush, shush. Shush, shush. Maybe they could have Trios title matches.
So yeah, this was fun. The faces went over, which kind of surprised me. I figured the Death Riders were going to look strong heading into All In.
I have not looked this up, but I am told by the internet that this is the first time the faces have ever gone over in Anarchy in the Arena. So that could have been a surprise. It was not a surprise to me. I only missed one call this whole night. But... it's just wrestling logic. The go-home show, the heels were standing tall. I know what that means.
It was the last 3 matches that I had wrong, actually. The next one was your piss break match. And I mean that with all the respect, because I like a lot of guys in this match, too. But
that's what it was. Look, sometimes that's your job.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes your job is to wrestle a fine match that cools the audience down for the next thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a necessary component to a wrestling show, and sometimes when you're a pro wrestler, that's going to be the part of the show that's your job to do.
I don't know. Maybe we could bring back weightlifting like they did in that one Royal Rumble.
It should be a wrestling match. Don't listen to him.
What about a pose-off?
Stop it. You may have a rap battle if you like.
No. That's Max Caster's gimmick is better now. He is the greatest wrestler alive.
Let's go, Max. You're the greatest wrestler alive. Let's go. I can't believe in the split up of the Acclaimed, he got the better gimmick.
It's not even to the point where he wins a match and we all love him yet, and I was right about what he should do.
I can't believe that he, the obvious Jannetty of the Acclaimed, got the better gimmick by leaning into the Jannetty skid, and Anthony Bowens got saddled with the most replaceable fucking it's-giving mid-garter, forgettable bullshit-ass gimmick.
This guy walked out of 2008 SmackDown and right into AEW.
Like, what the fuck? How are you fumbling the Anthony Bowens bag this hard?
But the match that was the piss break match was Paragon, which is the new name for Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong stable. Excuse me, the bad new name for Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong stable.
It's a fine name. Adam Cole says he's never played Mass Effect. He's either lying or one of his friends has. Your fucking gear is red and blue. Stop lying to me. I know you're a gamer, bro.
And they were fighting the Don Callis family in this iteration. Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, and human turd Josh Alexander.
Why the fuck is this dork here? Speaking of, during the Anarchy in the Arena match, second Josh Alexander, whose name I don't fucking remember.
Gabe Kidd.
Sure, whatever.
It's Lars Sullivan, but they deflated him.
Yeah, second Josh Alexander. They apparently have just a cloning facility for Josh Alexander in the back. He was there for a while. A Hook came back. And there's tension with the Opps because he was so easily replaced with Hobbs and they were more effective. That's gotta hurt his feelings.
Hook was wearing a Kenny sweatshirt, and I think that was really fun.
That's a funny reference. I agree.
Kenny from South Park, not Omega.
But who the fuck is this goddamn dork? I am a nerd. Look at the name on the podcast. Listen to my voice. I assure you, the physical form fits what you're hearing. I am not cool. We know our people. I fully claim Josh Alexander as one of my tribe. This guy is a fucking dweeb. He has negative aura. He has infinity negative riz. This guy looks like a loser. Why is he hanging out with the Don Callis family, who is almost universally pretty cool?
I would like to mention this is not about his stupid headgear, although it is stupid. He would look equally as lame without the headgear. He's a fine wrestler, but man, wow, what a lame surprise to receive. Same thing with Gabe Kidd. Oh no, Gabe Kidd's here now? Who gives a shit?
I understand why you have the headgear, man. If my ear came off, I'd wear some earmuffs too. I'm not trying to hate on your medical device.
It's his crappy, I'm definitely not Kurt Angle ring attire.
It's that you chose to make it your gimmick.
Yeah.
Look, having to wear some ear protectors, normal, reasonable. Making your gimmick amateur college wrestler who never got over it not getting to the Olympics, like failure amateur wrestler in your little onesie. Because look, a singlet can be really cool. Yours isn't, dog.
I don't know, and maybe that's him being a heel, and I'm supposed to hate him. But
if it is, you know what? Honestly, I'm getting worked. I hate you. You make things less cool. You make the Don Callis family a faction I like with fucking badass cool people like Takeshita and cringe trying too hard people who nonetheless still are cool like Kyle Fletcher. You make them lamer by association, and so I want you to go away. But that could be a very effective heel gimmick. If this is you, if you want this reaction, kudos to you, dog. You got me. Congratulations, you're only pretending to be a moron.
Don Callis family won, surprisingly, and then for some reason...
It's the only call I got wrong tonight.
Hironobu Tanahashi.
Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Okay, there's like another Tanahashi with an H name, and I keep getting them mixed up. The president of New Japan. I didn't used to until I found out about the second Tanahashi, and then my brain played 3-card Monty with him. It's like, best of luck, fucker. Him and Tomohiro Ishii and Brody King came down to the ring. Like, that matters.
Again, I want Brody King. I like Brody King. I want him to win matches and matter. Sadly, he doesn't and won't.
Even if he was a different jobber, I don't understand why he's here. what does this have to do with anything? Again, the announcer's going...
They went... I believe Excalibur said they've had some ongoing tensions with the Don Callis family.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe it's a Collision thing.
Maybe
we don't watch that show.
Collision thing, yeah. This brings us to our main event. We're already over time, so we'll just say it was a very good match, and have a good night.
No, we fucking won't. So this was the reason I bought this pay-per-view. Full stop. The only match I cared about at all going into this card, other matches won me over. I didn't care to start. I cared about this. Hangman Adam Page versus Will Ospreay for the Owen Hart Cup. And more importantly, for the contendership, for the number one contendership for the AEW Championship. This match was two guys whose storylines I am fully bought into, whose characters I'm fully bought into, who are both top of their game, main event guys. This was so well built structurally that it almost didn't matter if the promos were bad. Then the promos were good.
Your mileage may vary.
Hangman's were better, but they
were way better.
But they were both good promos that sold their characters in an authentic, genuine way without making one be more heel for the purposes of having, the standard face heel dynamic. It was a very honest fight between these two characters where they're at in their stories. It was nuanced. It was there were very valid reasons to root for both guys, very valid reasons both guys could win. This was the only match on the card that I wasn't sure who was going to win. And this was exceptionally built. It was the only match that was exceptionally built. It was the only match that was built well going into this, if I'm being honest. And more importantly for me, because my friend here's going to talk in a second when I'm done yapping, and you're going to see a different side of this. I was fully bought into both these guys, both their characters, and so it just elevated everything that was being done to another level. That was before the match started. White Raven, how are you going into this match?
Well, yeah, just for the sake of the people who this might be your first podcast, and especially if you've made it this far. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. I used to really like Hangman until he went heel. And he just lost the zazz, the thing that made me really like Hangman. And he's coming back out of it, and I recognize that. But he's not all the way there yet. The important part isn't there yet.
Is it just the music?
No, the music will be good, but it's his demeanor. It's not quite... Anxious Millennial Cowboy was a solid gimmick. I miss it. He's now depressed Millennial Cowboy. And that's still good, but I remember what stood there before. Will Ospreay is one of the most talented in-ring performers in the world. And I hate it when he opens his mouth in the ring. When he talks outside the ring, seems like a sweet guy. Seems like a real nice, genuine fella. Likes weed a little more than I do, but, hey, everyone's got a hobby. Has crummy taste in video games, but hey, we all have flaws. My friend referred to your average Will Ospreay promo as 90s Ric Flair, the cocaine years, as being performed by a can of Red Bull. And I thought that was very funny, because he just yells hoarsely and often contradicts himself and says things poorly. He doesn't have the charisma of Ric Flair, for better or worse. So I can't... Every time I want to be bought into him, he'll have an awesome match, and then I'll see a segment or something on the internet that's linked to me where he's like, oh yeah, bro, we had a really good time, and I'm really happy to be representing AEW. This is for the fans out there. And I'm like, oh, what a charming guy. And then he gets on the mic and loses me as though he's doing it on purpose.
He speaks with a very rough, timbre to his voice. He does sort of a high vocal fry shout when he's doing promos.
It's not all that different from what a lot of wrestlers do.
And he has an accent that I would describe as working class. Those two things combined make, unless you are relatively used to hearing people talk with that accent, make him fairly unintelligible.
And so often I am struggling to keep up with what he's saying. And this is, I don't typically have a problem with anyone's accent from the UK. I can usually parse a thick Scottish brogue just fine. This is the guy I can't understand? So yeah, I don't care who wins this match. I think it would be cool for Hangman's story, but I know how wrestling booking works, and Will Ospreay is a marquee name the same way Mercedes Moné is a marquee name. That also makes perfect sense.
Going into this match, my head said Will Ospreay was going to win. My heart said Hangman was going to win. I made my prediction. I locked in when this came on. We basically live tweet these shows in the Discord. Shout out, you can be on the Discord if you want. You can come live tweet them with us. We're always welcoming. Even if you disagree with us, that's honestly more welcoming. I like to hear their opinions a lot.
Yeah, somebody needs to tamper down my haterade.
But I locked in. I was fully bought in for this. This was excellent. This was peak pro wrestling. The storylines were respected. The guys put in effort to make good ring psychology, to tell a coherent in-ring story. They put in references and callbacks to the last 2 years of storytelling for both guys. And the right guy won. White Raven mentioned that he liked who Hangman was before this dark turn. Hangman had a run with the AEW title before, but it came across pretty flat. He didn't do a lot with it because his character there wasn't a lot there. He was anxious millennial cowboy. He didn't have a whole lot of pathos. He didn't have a whole lot of stuff to bite into story-wise. You gotta forge the hero sometimes in a story. Hangman has been through shit and mud and blood for the last 2 years. And the evil king is in charge of AEW right now. The by his own admission, based on a literal Nazi romper stomper fucking bad guy, the arch devil is in charge of AEW right now. You need a hero. A hero has to be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley. Will Ospreay could be that hero, the charging new young buck who, not those guys, who rose to the top on a series of untrammeled victories and is clearly the guy. But the better story is the hero who's been forged through pain and loss and grief and being forced to confront the fact that vengeance brings no joy. The only thing that can bring joy is being the best version of yourself again. Hangman Adam Page will be the next AEW champion.